Flight of the Intruder started as a novel by former naval aviator Stephen Koontz. The book was then turned into a movie in 1991 starring Willem Dafoe and Danny Glover, and that movie absolutely tanked, earning mostly negative reviews from everyone, including Roger Ebert, who said it was a quote-unquote mess. The video game, however, is based on the book and not the movie, releasing 1 year ahead of the film. The gist of the book's plot is that a pilot in the Vietnam War finds that the rules of engagement imposed on him by his American officers are resulting in his missions being highly dangerous yet inconsequential. He questions the worth of his risks, and after the death of his comrade, he plans an unauthorized mission to inflict some real damage on the enemy that results in him facing prosecution by the Navy. Even though it's based on the book, today's game features none of that story, and instead focuses on 12 1972 missions against North Vietnam guerrilla fighters based on a real-life operation known as the Linebacker Campaign. Alright, well, grab your flight controls, and let's see what's up. Here, in Flight of the Intruder, you play a series of 12 missions spread across the year 1972, each broken into 4 sections. Those 4 sections are taking off, dogfighting against enemy jets, bombing enemy ships, and then landing on an aircraft carrier. Taking off is easy. You just rev up your jet, get her moving across the aircraft carrier, and then it will eventually ascend into the sky. No sweat. Also, don't forget to pull up the landing gear. Or do forget. I don't really think it matters where the landing gear is until you land. Once in the sky, though, it won't be long before enemy fighter jets find you and try to blow you up. Now, in early missions, you'll have to deal with usually just 2 other jets at a time. They'll fly towards you, and you'll be able to see them approach on your radar, and if you don't kill one another, they'll fly by you and out of your radar before magically looping around to face you again. So you don't really need to chase enemies around. You can stay mostly straight and just be patient. However, it is important to be moving around some so that you're not a sitting duck. Or a flying duck in this case. Well, a flying duck that's easy to hit. Well, you get it. You have a couple options for attacking, as is typical with flight sim and air combat games. Your machine gun requires direct aim and is unlimited. If you can get the enemy in your sights long enough to inflict damage this way, power to you. Another, and more sure way, is by using your radar-guided missiles, which stand a good chance of hitting the enemy jet and wiping it out all in one hit. The bad news is that these missiles aren't infinite like your machine guns are, but the good news is that you always have one more missile than there are enemy planes. So best to use those and then resort to the machine guns in a pinch. Enemy missiles can be tough to dodge. In general, if you can get them off screen, you're okay, but not always. If you can get them in your reticle before they hit you, you can shoot the missiles away, and if there's only 1 or 2 enemy jets around you, this isn't too hard to pull off. Later in the game, things can become chaotic when you're tracking the jets and trying to shoot them while deflecting or dodging missiles. At the same time, you're trying your best not to waste one of your radar-guided missiles on one of their radar-guided missiles by accident. Ugh. For the first level, after you take off, you'll have just one dogfight area, but as the game goes on, the missions will expand to have multiples of these fights. After the dogfight sections, your perspective shifts to this quasi-top-down third-person view, where enemy ships parade towards you from over the horizon. The goal here is really just to survive. You don't have to wipe out every ship, but you need to wipe out as many as possible. The number in the upper middle, beneath the score, is the number that can get past you before they release a barrage of missiles at you, and those are tough to dodge. In the upper right is the number of radar-guided missiles you have, which you should save for the heavy units. So in short, you'll need to be agile and use your missiles wisely here. So after the bombing run, it's time to land back on the aircraft carrier. Now if you've played Top Gun before, this might give you flashbacks. Landing the plane is tough, and if you don't land it, even though you survived the dogfighting and the ship parade, you'll undo it all here if you goof the landing. Heads up though, on your first few tries, you're probably going to goof it. My trick was to lower the thrust to about 48% until I got around a range of 250 feet, and then I tipped it back up just above 50% so that the plane is flying even. Then at around a range of 100 feet, I get the landing gear out, and if you forget this part, you'll have a bad time, and so will every innocent soul on that aircraft carrier you accidentally suicide bombed. So get the landing gear out. Now slow the plane down some, but not so much that the vertical velocity goes above 10 feet. And soon, you'll touch down the aircraft carrier and the arrestor hook will grab the jet and keep you from flying off and into the water like an idiot. If you come in too hot, you'll crash and burn, wiping out several of your friends and probably a few fish. And again, subsequent missions will require multiple dogfights and bombing runs between taking off and landing, thus making the game quite long and certainly repetitive. Maybe a little too repetitive. You have to take this one on with 3 lives and just 1 continue, and you'll have to do all this with minimal music and mostly airplane sound effects booping, bopping, beeping, and squelching at you, so good luck. All said, this is a competent game that has moments of enjoyment, but it just happens to be stretched thin across 12 long, uninteresting missions. It's a game of slightly above average quality, but not something you really need to go out of your way to play. In Europe, this game is called Phantom Air Mission, which is arguably cooler and also a lie. It should just be called Very Frequent Air Missions, since that's all the game really is. And with that, I think that about covers Flight of the Intruder on the NES. And as always, drop that landing gear, and thanks for watching.